that was here during the Civil War?
No, sir. There's only a remnant of that house. And I'll tell you about that in a minute.
Okay.
It's only a remnant of the house that they, when the Eisenhowers bought it, they thought it was a Civil War era house. And they were going to, red brick house, farmhouse, they were going to renovate it, but things didn't turn out exactly what they planned. Most of what you see, they built. Need a few more minutes.
What's the most interesting thing here to you? You work here, so what do you find most interesting that other people might not notice?
Well, I mean, there's many things here. To me, it's like bringing to life what went on here during with the Eisenhowers. Like he had 7 active world leaders here at the home. I mean, people like former Prime Minister Winston Churchill, Soviet Premier Nikita Khrushchev, French President Charles de Gaulle, among others. Walking where we walk today, you know, you'll see on where they sat in the house. To me, that's, you know, you think of that. But this is the only home the Eisenhowers ever owned. According to Mamie and her marriage, they moved 39, 40 times. Republicans wanted Ike as their candidate in 1952. I like Ike, you know. Nobody knew his politics because he never voted before he was president. He said an Army officer should be apolitical. But he was concerned. There were two things that went on. One, the Democrats had been in power for so long. He felt unless there was a Republican that could win, we were in danger of becoming a one-party system of government. Then the major Republican candidate at that time was Taft, who was an isolationist. And I believe strongly in the international alliances and international engagement. So there was a couple things that pushed, he finally was persuaded. Then with the popular kind of call for him to run, you know, people wanted Eisenhower, that he succumbed to the pressure and ran. And wins by landslide, both elections.
Well, he ran against someone who had no chance.
Adlai Stevenson he ran against twice. Anyway, looks like it's 11. I think we may have everyone. So welcome to the, hang on, we're going to knock one in yet. Welcome to the Eisenhower National Historic Site. My name's John. So we'll talk here briefly. If you have any questions, then we're going to go in the house, get you going through the house.
I don't think he was popular.
So it's 1950. Okay, the war's over. 45. General Eisenhower. He's a 5-star general, general of the Army. There's only 5 of those in our history. He's Army Chief of Staff till 1948. Now, 1950. Anybody know where he's at? What he's doing? He's president of Columbia University, New York City. Ike had a brief academic career here. He's living in the president's quarters, he and Mamie, Morningside Heights in Manhattan. Now he's 60 years old. It's not the best fit for the general. He's not an academic, and they're looking to retire. So one question, why did they come to Pennsylvania? Right? Neither of them are from Pennsylvania. The general was born in 1890, Denison, Texas. He's raised in Abilene, Kansas. He's about 2 years old. Mamie Eisenhower is born in Boone, Iowa. Now her father retired when he was 36 years of age. They were very wealthy, Mamie's family, unlike Ike. He moves the family to Denver. That's where she grows up. So why on earth are they going to come here? Well, there's a couple, 3 reasons why. And the first, like there were many of us, reasons why we live where we do. Maybe his ancestral, you grew up there, or you speaks to your values, your interests, and so forth. So there's reasons they're going to be attracted to Pennsylvania. And the first thing for the general is an ancestral connection to Pennsylvania. His ancestors immigrated from Germany through Switzerland in the 1740s. And they were farmers 50 miles north of here. His grandfather and father were both born in Pennsylvania. They were a religious community called the Brethren in Christ, or the River Brethren. They baptized in the Susquehanna River. Now the grandfather moves the family to Kansas because it was customary in that community when each boy got married, he'd get a farm. Well, farmland started getting pretty expensive here. So they all sold their farms, did pretty well, moved to the frontier. So that's how he gets out there. Now the second thing is the general's love of history and the rich history here in Gettysburg. He was born in 1890 again. When he's a young man, maybe this young man's age, and you got old men like me telling war stories, he's a Civil War veteran. So from when he's very young, he's hearing stories of Civil War. He loves history, particularly military history. So he first comes here in 1915. He's a senior at West Point. They come spend several days. They call it a staff ride. He studies the battle. He's enthralled with Gettysburg. Now he and Mamie meet in 1915. He graduates Station Fort Sam Houston, San Antonio, Texas. Mamie's family would winter in San Antonio. There's snowbirds. That's where they meet. Love at first sight, two of them. They're going to get married in less than a year because our involvement, they moved the wedding up because their involvement in World War I is just on the horizon. So they get married now, 1916, 1917, they have a little boy. And they have two sons. Only one survives to adulthood. First little boy's name's Dowd Dwight Eisenhower. Mamie's maiden name was Dowd. The little boy's nickname was Little Icky. So the three of them together. Now 1917, we declare war on Germany. 1918, Eisenhower's now 27 years old. He's a captain, infantry officer. He wants to be in France fighting. It's a great war, the war to end all wars. He's got to get in the fight. He's all ready to sail from New York City, but he's called back to D.C. He's given new orders. He's not going to France. He's going to be assigned to Gettysburg. So what's going to bring this Army officer to Gettysburg? Eisenhower's second time to Gettysburg in 1918. Anybody know what's going on here? 1918. It's going to be Eisenhower's first command. It's an Army officer, independent command. He's going to command the 1st Army Tank Corps training base. It's right here in Gettysburg. It's called Camp Colt, after the Colt Samuel Colt 45 revolver. Anybody know where, take a guess where Camp Colt was? It's right behind us, up on the battlefield. These fields were, the National Military Parks were not administered by the Park Service in those days. They were administered by the War Department, who's not particularly interested in tourism. They had used these fields for training purposes. So Ike's going to command up on that field. If you toured the battlefield up here, where Pickett's charge occurred, past the Pennsylvania Monument, over to the Round Tops, 1918, you would see a vast Army camp there called Camp Colt. At its peak, he's going to command 10,000 soldiers, 600 officers up here. You know where McDonald's is up here? Well, that's where the headquarters was for Camp Colt. An extended housing development's called Colt Park today. That was part of Camp Colt. Went the whole way down to Tommy's Pizza. You're familiar with Tommy's? Anyway. So Eisenhower's not happy about this. He thinks it's a, kind of ruin his Army career. You don't get promotions in some stateside training base. But what he's not going to find out till later that actually this 1918 for Eisenhower is a critical year in his career. Because what he does here in Gettysburg, he distinguishes himself. Puts him on a trajectory that 25 years later, he's a 5-star general, Supreme Allied Commander, European theater. Anyway, during this time, he, Mamie, and little Icky lived in 3 different places in town. And they're going to have very fond memories of Gettysburg. So back to 1950, where they're going to go, he's still a 5-star general. They never really retire. He's gone back and forth to Washington. He liked the idea that we're centrally located. He had dreamed about for many years getting a small farm. He wanted to say, get out of the concrete, get back to land. He wanted to get something that was in bad shape and leave it better. He'd written many letters about this during the war. And finally, they had friends, George and Mary Ellen. They retired a little south of here. They say, hey, why don't you guys retire where we're at? We're going to get together, play cards, what have you. So Ike and Mamie come down with George and Mary Ellen. They go farm hunting. And they find this farm here, dairy farm. It was run down, bad shape. Been on the market a long time, no buyers. 189 acres, 29 dairy cows, 500 chickens, and farm equipment. What do you think the asking price was? $22,000. Now the owner here is the Eisenhowers are interested, so it suddenly becomes $44,000. About $500,000 in today's money. Not a bad investment. So he buys the farm. He thinks he's going to retire. 2 weeks after he bought it, though, President Truman called. The General Eisenhower, you're the consensus candidate to be the first Supreme Commander of NATO, North Atlantic Treaty Organization, then headquartered in Paris. He's going to command all those NATO forces. Ike's a soldier, right? Call to duty. He says, yes, sir, Mr. President. So he and Mamie go off to Paris for 2 years. He has a friend of his, retired Brigadier General Arthur Nevins, who grew up on a farm. He said, Arthur, could you live here with your wife and run the farm? He said, yes, sir. So Ike and Mamie are in Paris for 2 years. They come back to New York City in '52. Then, of course, he runs for president, as we were discussing. Now they're in the White House, 53. They're still not here. General Nevins developed tuberculosis. He has to move out for treatment. So the house is here. And one day, Mamie, they're in the White House about a month. Mamie says, look, Ike, we got this house in Gettysburg. I never had my own home. We need to start fixing this house up. We need a place to get out of D.C. Ike says, Mamie, I just became president. I don't have time for this. So Mamie is in charge here. She's responsible for pretty much what you see here at the house. So as I said, there's a red brick farmhouse here. Many people are saying, Mamie, just tear it down, build a new one. So now I want to restore it. Contractor's taking bricks off. He finds it's a brick veneer over a 2-story log cabin that's actually over 200 years old. But the logs were rotted, they're worm infested, what have you. They had to tear it down. Now, Mamie wanted to keep what she could. The only thing she could salvage was a brick addition added in the early 1800s, which is right between 2 downspouts, 2 little attic windows. You see those bricks are rough. Those are hand-hewed bricks, opposed to the machine bricks from the 50s to the left. So that section standing alone, just that narrow section, they build that, and they build this stone section around that. Where the stone part of the house sits, there was a summer outdoor kitchen. Too hot to bake bread in the house here, right, July and August. That kitchen had a big Dutch beehive bake oven. And if you look, you can see the back of it, because Mamie had them keep the oven right in place and build a house around the oven. So when you come out of the house, you're going to come out this door when you're done. In here is the general's office and the general's den. Of course, we don't have dens now. It's a man cave. There's a big fireplace. A cast iron door you'll see opens into the oven. And the flooring in there, those are timbers they could save from that original house. So it takes almost 2 years to build this, 53 to 55, $215,000, about $3 million today's money. They spend their first weekend here, April 55. Coming up on the weekends, going back on Sunday, or come up Friday, go back Sunday. If you add up the time they spend here during the presidency, it'd be about 1 full year. White House, their primary residence. So 3 things go on here during the presidency. One is the place to come to rest, recuperate. General pursues his hobby. His hobby is the farm. He's a gentleman farmer. He's not out here flinging manure. He's not making any money here. Whatever he's growing is primarily to feed the herd of Black Angus cows. They love to entertain down here at the tea house, the barbecues, and so forth. Second thing is he's going to host 7 active world leaders here for personal diplomacy, where he bringing somebody to your home, very special thing, right? Inviting them into your home, sharing your family. You'll bring them here in the helicopter, land up here. He takes them, shows them the cows. They go in the house, meet the family, and they sit on that sun porch for private conversations that build trust and understanding. So 7 of them. Very first was Prime Minister Nehru of India, 54. Others, de Gaulle, Churchill, Nikita Khrushchev, Soviet premier, September 59. Then finally, the third thing goes on here is a place for recovery and recuperation. Now, the general has his health problems. Up till 1948, he was smoking 4 packs of cigarettes a day.
Wow.
Camels and Lucky Strikes, or rolling his own. And during the war, it's like 4 packs a day, 28, 29 cups of coffee, maybe 3-4 hours sleep a night. So he had his first of 7 heart attacks in September of 1955, still in his first term. He's got to make a decision to run the second term or not. He's visiting Mamie's family in Denver, suffered a massive heart attack. He's hospitalized at Fitzsimmons Army Hospital for almost 2 months. Comes back here, a physician doesn't want him in the White House. This for almost 2 months, this is the White House. He's running the country out of this. You'll be impressed by how small his office is. Tells you something about the character of the guy. So finally, 61, now JFK sworn in. He and Mamie are finally here in retirement. Now, he's still busy writing presidential memoirs and what have you. Now, 67, his health is failing. He starts divesting in the cows. He doesn't want Mamie stuck with his stuff. And they decide in 1967 to deed this farm, the greatest asset, the only home they own, to the government. So they sign it over, Park Service, 1967. Agreement is the general has lifetime occupancy. He can live here till he dies, continue running the farms. Now, he died in 1969. After he died, the agreement was, they made in 67, Mamie would leave within 6 months. She was going to go live in D.C. But after he passed, she wanted to stay. Got the memories here, the only home. She's really built this. Grandchildren grew up in the house, old schoolhouse that bordered the farm down here. So nobody wanted to send the sheriff out and drag Mrs. Eisenhower out of the house. So Mamie was given a special use permit by the Department of the Interior. She could stay in the home. In 14 acres, she was responsible for the upkeep. And she lived here herself another 10 years, so she died in 1970. That's the brief history. Any questions? Okay, so we're going to go ahead and go into the